لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الحق المبين الحمد لله ملك السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن الحمد لله الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله المصطفى اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Brothers and sisters, if we take a moment and analyze history, we will become acquainted with the fact that from the very beginning, Allah consistently blessed the youth with phenomenal talent and exceptional courage. But at the very same time, youth are extremely vulnerable and susceptible. Hence, if this talent and courage of theirs is not nurtured or harnessed, then the havoc, the chaos, and the problems that they would create would be far worse than that of the adults combined together. And the evidence for such a bold statement could be extracted directly from the Quran when Allah had commanded and instructed Khidr to remove a specific young man from this earth. In the words of the Quran, فَخَشِينَا أَن يُرْهِقَهُمَا طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. We commanded and instructed Khidr that he removes a specific young man from this earth because he would have grown up excessively rebelling against Allah, the Lord Almighty. And not just that, he would have somehow managed to convince and motivate an entire generation to disbelieve in Allah in the most arrogant and despicable manner possible. Hence, you and I, brothers and sisters, extract from this verse, typically a young man and a woman moves not by themselves. If they advance in good, with them they take an entire generation. But if they plunge in sin, then with them drowns an entire generation. But it is fair to understand if we as parents and guardians do our job in nurturing this child and harnessing and developing the child's capabilities, abilities, and talent, then the horizons that they will explore, the heights that they will climb, and the value that they would add to society will otherwise take decades in generations to achieve. Because the salient feature of a young man and a young woman is courage. Nothing is ever too daunting for them. Nothing is ever too challenging for them. In fact, experts have said it is in the very nature of a young man and a young woman to like challenges. But unfortunately today, the slogans and the whispers that are being chanted and echoed is to provoke this young man and woman to abuse his or her courage. So typically when a young boy is with his friends, he's dared to rev his dad's car until the needle can go no more. The young girl is there to lose her chastity to a stranger she met online or someone in the dorm. The youth is there to pop their grandparents' pills, to hoot for this one and to flirt with that one. And the list goes on. The Prophet of Allah described this phenomena in eloquent words when he said, "Ash-shababu shu'batun min al-junun." Youth is a period of insanity. So you are not speaking or conversing to someone who is sane, but rather somebody who temporarily lacks sanity, and as a result of which they are behaving recklessly. Therefore, if you and I as parents and guardians could only communicate the right messages via the very billboards that advertise nudity and semi-nudity, if we could only seize the marketing opportunities such as social media and promote messages of values and morals, then in doing so we will be able to save the fabric of today's society. And it is then and only then the young men and women will stand up and face the challenges of today and tomorrow. They will have the conviction of their courage, even if it meant facing a dictator naked in his eyes. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala speaks about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam when he had embarked on the mission to destroy idol worship and establish monotheism, the doctrine of one Allah. Allah categorically in the Quran made reference that Ibrahim did so as a young man. In the context of the verse, قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتًى يَذْكُرُهُمْ يُقَالُ لَهُ إِبْرَاهِيم. You and I both are very much acquainted with the incident. Ibrahim had come and destroyed the idols, and he left the axe hanging in the largest and the biggest, in the neck of the largest and the biggest of the idols. And the following day when the administrators came and they observed this chaos, they went into the town investigating as to who destroyed the idols. The people said, "We don't know, we were not there, we didn't see anyone, but we did hear of the young man Ibrahim plotting and planning on destroying the idols." So Allah in the Quran could have mentioned Ibrahim alayhi salam's story without making categorical reference to the fact that he was young. But Allah deliberately did so as an indication to the youth of every century that if you want to do something productive and constructive with your life, if you want to become a successful pioneering personality in the world of tomorrow, if you want to create for yourself a vision, then you need to start doing so as a young man. Because every elder that is present this afternoon will tell the youth that chances are what you are able to accomplish as a young man, you will not be able to accomplish when you are a lot older. And every old individual, if that's what they might prefer being referred to as, or every elder rather, would inform the youth that we only wish we could turn the clocks back and do what we could when we were young, when we had the brains, when we had the energy, when we had the motivation. That is why the poet said, زَرَعُوا فَأَكَلْنَا وَنَزْرَعُوا فَيَأْكُلُونَ. The elders, our forefathers, realized their needs. They sowed the seeds and they reaped the benefits. Now is it not about time that the future generations start realizing the needs of their generations and start catering accordingly? Once again, when we open the Quran, and subhanAllah, the Quran is tibyanan li kulli shay. It provides you and I with solutions to every complex matter, every difficult situation. Yet when you and I fall into a dilemma, we like to refer to the likes of Dr. Phil and see what they have to say about the matter. When only the Quran is opened, full of solutions, only if we turn to it. So we become acquainted with yet another story and incident of Musa alayhi salam. When he went to the people of Bani Israel with the message of truth, they were skeptical in accepting it, knowing the tyranny of Fir'aun. They knew what Musa was preaching was correct, but they hesitated and were reluctant in accepting the message, fearing the implications and the consequences from Fir'aun. But Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala in the Quran informs us in regards to this matter. فَمَا آمَنَ لِمُوسَى إِلَّا ذُرِّيَّةٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ عَلَى خَوْفٍ مِّن فِرْعَوْنَ. During the inception of Moses preaching to Bani Israel, they rejected him knowing the tyranny of Fir'aun. But again, it was a lot of the young men and women who stood up and they said, no matter what Fir'aun does to us, we will accept the message of truth. And we will take you as a prophet and accept monotheism. And they did so and made it easy to the extent that the entire Bani Israel of 600,000 to 700,000 accepted the fold of monotheism and the teachings of Musa. Who did this? No one but the youth. Why? Because Allah has blessed the youth with phenomenal talent and exceptional courage. Let's not go so back into history. We only see in recent days that Occupy Wall Street and the Arab Spring, who were behind these movements? No one but the youth. Now one could debate quite extensively as to the outcome, whether it was positive or negative, and we can go on day after day discussing these issues. But the point that I want to make is that again, it was the youth who put their minds to something that they wanted to do, and they were able to accomplish enormous results. With a little bit of direction and nurturing, imagine what the youth can accomplish in this world. With a little bit of nurturing. They possess immense talent. Wallahi, if the youth put their mind to something that is good, no one can stop them. If they put their mind to that which is bad, no one can come in their way, and that is a fact. Today, 30 million youth in North America, out of a population of 49 million youth, and I will speak about this tonight, are considered growing up at a risk of unskilled, unlearned, and even worse, unloved. 30 million out of 49 million. That's a huge number. Sticking to the point, we hear of another example in Sahih al-Bukhari, under the chapter Babun la yadkhulu ad-dajjal al-Madina. The Antichrist will never be able to enter the blessed city of Mecca and Medina. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri narrates under this chapter that the Prophet ﷺ said, يَعْتِ الدَّجَّالِ وَهُوَ مُحَرَّمٌ عَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَدْخُلْ نِقَابَ الْمَدِينَةِ. The Antichrist, Dajjal, he would try his utmost best to enter into the city of Medina. But he would be barred by the divine presence of the Malaika. يَنْزِلُ بَعْدَ الصِّبَاخ الَّتِي بِالْمَدِينَةِ. He would then go and reside on the outskirts or the suburbs of Medina. And in detail, the Prophet ﷺ said it will be a city built on salty land. And it's a beautiful hadith to read and to educate yourself about. I don't have the time to elaborate, but I would say, ironically and so amazingly, today, if you Google map it, you will see that city being built in the suburbs of Medina on that salty land, in preparation for Dajjal to come. So, يَنْزِلُ بَعْدَ الصِّبَاخ الَّتِي بِالْمَدِينَةِ. He will go and he would reside in this city. And then a man from Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, he will be considered among the very few noble of the time. In other words, there will be a handful of noble people in that time, in that era, and he would be among them. He would say, let me go and intellectually challenge Dajjal. Now remember, Dajjal would be claiming that he is Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. He is the highest and the greatest of all lords. And he would be asking people to worship him and take him as the savior, etc., etc. So this man would want to go and challenge Dajjal theologically. And he would go up to Dajjal, he would roll up his sleeves and he would point at him in his face and say, أشهد أنك الدجال الذي حدثنا عنك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. You are indeed the very Antichrist that my Nabi had prophesied about. And he will go on challenging him and intellectually debating him. Dajjal would become embarrassed and he will take a man from the crowd and he would say to the people, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ قَتَلْتُ هَذَا ثُمَّ أَحْيَيْتُهُ هَلْ تَشُكُّونَ فِي الْأَمْرِ. If I kill this man and split him in half and bring him back to life and he starts functioning as a regular basic human being, then would you believe in me as the Lord and Savior of the universe? And knowing the gullible nature of people, no matter what you say and what kind of candidate you might be, you will have hundreds and thousands following you today. Imagine Dajjal with all of his miracles. People will say, if you can do such a thing, we will believe in you. And then the Dajjal will take a man, he will kill him, bring him back to life. Long story short, people will start believing in him, at least most of them, as the Lord and Savior. The point of mentioning this, when the Prophet of Allah described this noble man who would intellectually challenge Dajjal, he said, شَابٌ مُمْتَلِئًا شَبَابًا. شَابٌ مُمْتَلِئًا شَبَابًا. He would be a young man in the prime of his life. He would be a young man in the prime of his life, not a professor of some kind of elite university, someone with maths credentials and know-how and wisdom. No, he will be a young man in the prime of his life, the one who will have the guts of his conviction to take on Dajjal himself. One man. He will only be a young individual, a teenager, in some narrations the Prophet said. Subhanallah. Today, when you and I analyze the actions of our youth, we could say very closely they have become the agents of Dajjal, if not Dajjal himself. Recently, I read a paper, maybe a month ago. I read it on the way to a masjid giving a khutbah, and I was with a brother, and I was reading the paper. 2 youth robbed a home, tied the grandparents and the couple, and once they robbed the house, they lit the home on fire, and the 4 of them burnt alive. And when I mentioned the story to someone, in fact it was my wife, she shared with me a similar story that happened in the same week. The different was one was in Guyana and one was in America. But again, it was an action conducted by the youth. I have about 10 minutes and I'll try to wrap up. Let us understand that the wealth of nations is not stored in the depths of the earth. The wealth of nations is not spread out on the surface. The wealth of nations is not gold and silver, and it is not in treasure troves. In fact, the real wealth of nations is the human being. Man with his faith, values, and honor is the greatest wealth any nation possesses. And the youth are the most important component of this human wealth. Therefore, a wise man once said, if you would like to know the future of any nation, then know the situation of the youth from that nation. What are they occupied with? What are they concerned with? Who are their ideals and what are their goals and aspirations in life? So therefore, let me conclude by sharing with you one more example of a young man who had his priorities in life set straight, and it is definitely a means of motivation for all of the youth who are present here today, but also a means of motivation for the parents who are here today, to nurture your child in such a manner. He was of an African origin, born 46 years after the Prophet's migration from Mecca to Medina. He was amongst the most noblest, knowledgeable and pious tabi'een. He was none other than Sa'id ibn Jubair. To run through the story quickly, he was born in Basra, moved to Kufa when he was only a child. Unfortunate for him, this was the era when Hajjaj bin Yusuf, the notorious murderer, had his sovereignty and dominance. So Sa'id felt as a young boy, not even a teenager yet, if I am to be brought in the court of Hajjaj, either I will be killed because of the profound knowledge that I possess, or I would be placed in house arrest, and I would not be able to learn or teach. His life was dear to him, his education was dear to him. In fact, the narrator said, فَمُنْذُ نَعُومَةِ أَظْفَارِهِ كَانَ النَّاسُ يَرَوْنَهُ, that you would either find him in the mihrab of the masjid worshipping Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, or you would find him with the book reading and increasing his knowledge. So he escapes from Kufa and takes enmity in Mecca. And then he would reside in Mecca right outside of the Haram, studying directly from the mother of the believers, Aisha radiallahu anha and Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Imam Ahmed Ibn Hanbal says on any given day he had at least 10,000 people studying from him directly. And yet he was in the midst of his teenage years, knowing several languages, intellectually versed both in the religion and in the knowledge and science of the world. Now 10 years later, after staying in Mecca, a man by the name of Khalid bin Abdullah was appointed as the governor to Mecca. While he had a Muslim name, he had nothing to do with Islam. Absolutely nothing. And the people said to Sa'id that we warn you that because of your profound knowledge and popularity, it will not gel well with this governor, and you should escape Mecca for the safety of your life. So he said to them, I feel ashamed. As a young boy, I had to flee from Basra and Kufa and come to Mecca. And I was scared of my life. And I feel ashamed that I have to flee faith again. So if fate is that I am killed by the hands of this notorious murderer, then let it be. If it's going to happen, then let it happen. I rather not move and stay here in Mecca. Lo and behold, 10 days later, he's sitting with his students, thousands of them in the haram right outside of the Kaaba, and he sees at a distance that the men of Hajjaj are coming with arms to take him. So quickly he says to his students, مَا أَرَانِي إِلَّا مَقْتُولًا عَلَى يَدَيْ ذَلِكَ الظَّالِمِ. It seems like my time is over. I'm going to be killed by these soldiers of Hajjaj bin Yusuf, these oppressors. لَقَدْ كُنْتَ أَنَا وَصَاحِبَانِ لِي فِي لَيْلَةٍ عِبَادَةٍ. He says, very recently, my students, me and two of my best buddies, dedicated and devoted a few hours to exclusive ibadah, worshipping Allah in the haram. Today we will say, I went on a hiking trip with my friends, I went on a fishing trip, I went on a hunting trip. He said, we dedicated a few hours to worshipping Allah in the haram. This was their activity. فَاسْتَشْعَرْنَا حَلَاوَةَ الدُّعَاءِ فَدَعَوْنَا اللَّهَ بِمَا دَعَوْنَا. And before we could actually get into the rhythm of worshipping Allah, we felt an ecstasy in dua. فَدَعَوْنَا اللَّهَ بِمَا دَعَوْنَا. And we felt a bond with Allah. And we couldn't get off the prayer mat. And when we were done, two of my friends were captured by the guards and they were killed instantly. I managed to escape. بَقِيتُ أَنَا أَنْتَظِرُ. But it seems like my turn has also come. By this moment, the guards reached him. They beat him until he started bleeding. They intercepted, apprehended, shackled him, and they started to drag him across the floor of the haram, beating him consistently. But as he would teach, he had a 5-year-old girl, not even 20 years of age. His daughter would play with her toys in the courtyard of the haram. She saw her father, طَلَعَتْ بُنَيَّةُ صَغِيرَةُ اللَّهِ. Young girl, imagine the clash of emotions, brothers and sisters. She comes running to her dad, he's bleeding and shackled. تَشَبَّثَتْ بِهِ. She clings onto his leg. Now you can imagine, brothers, the clash of emotions. He sees his daughter looking at her in her eyes, knowing there is no return. He is erupted with emotion. Today, a young boy abandons a haram relationship only to receive a text message from that girl 2 days later, and he feels emotionally obliged to return to that relationship. Talk about emotions from where to where. And as he's being dragged, تَشَبَّثَتْ بِهِ, she clings onto her father's leg. وَجَعَلَتْ تَبْكِي وَتَنْشِدْ. She begins to cry and scream. فَنَحَّاهَا عَنْهُ بِرِفْقٍ. He gently motions away, keeping his tears behind. He says to his daughter, قُولِي لِأُمِّكِ. He said, قُولِي لِأُمِّكِ. Go home and tell your mother, be patient. Be patient. Allah will unite us in Jannah. Be patient. Allah will unite us in Jannah. And then he is brought to the courtyard of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. An amazing dialogue takes place. I would need an hour to go into that dialogue. I encourage you to download it, a PDF version. Sit with your family, read it, introspect the details, the bravery, the intellectuality of this young man. But the dialogue ends with an amazing outcome. And I will share that with you and I will end with this. After the dialogue is done, Hajjaj is embarrassed. So he says, Ama wallahi la aqtulannak, I'm going to kill you. And we all know that akhiru sahmi fi kinanati al-muluk, the last arrow in the king's quiver is always a death threat, I will kill you. So he says to Hajjaj that if you kill me, you will destroy my life in this world, but as a result of which your life will be destroyed in the hereafter. So he says to the slave, bring the sword and kill the man. So immediately Sa'id ibn Jubair turns to the Kaaba and he says, Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lilladhi, I turn to Allah. So in his arrogance, Hajjaj says, Hawwiluhum anil qibla, move him away from the qibla. So he recites, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, wherever you turn your face, you will find Allah. So in his arrogance, Hajjaj says, throw him into the ground. Let's see if he can find his Allah there. And he recites, مِنْهَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. From the sand we created you, and to the sand we shall return you. Sa'id ibn Jubair was then killed, but before he died, he made a dua and asked Allah to bring an end to Hajjaj bin Yusuf. 2 weeks later, he developed a disease and no one could sit with him in the same room. A stench was coming from his stomach. He killed a few companions in between, but that was it. He came to his death. Imam Ahmed Ibn Hanbal says that I never saw a person more knowledgeable of the Quran than Sa'id ibn Jubair. And when he died, not only did his family and the nation mourn his death, Imam Ahmed Ibn Hanbal says that I feel even the angels were stricken in grief upon the death of this young man. There's so much more to be said. Unfortunately, I have ran out of time. Inshallah ta'ala, I will be here tonight. One may ask, what can we do to raise our children in such a manner? There are 5 basic principles that are taught by scholars for every parent and guardian to understand and implement. What are these 5 principles? Join me tonight after Salatul Isha. For about an hour we'll shed light upon these 5 principles. For now, we ask Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq and ability in raising our children in a manner that is pleasing to Him. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'an al-azim wa nafa'na wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-hakim. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'il al-muslimin fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafur. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. أقم الصلاة. Stand up and straighten yourself.